And welcome back to yet another exciting week of the Lazy Money Game. In this week's episode, I will start by answering 3 questions which I have received from the audience, and afterwards I will give an update to my portfolio as well. So let's immediately jump to the questions, and the first question goes like this. Hey LMG, why did you decide to leave Revolut? So basically I have 3 main reasons for why I have decided to leave Revolut. Please note that I still have stocks on Revolut. I have not exited all my positions yet, since I'm still trying to wait for better times to sell some of my stocks, and after the recent fall we saw within this week, it might take a little longer. So reason number 1 is that Revolut is no longer as cheap as they were when I started using the platform. I will show that in an Excel spreadsheet after I have explained the 2 other reasons. Reason number 2 is that it seems unprofessional that you just get stocks in your account when there is a spin-off. I saw, for instance, that when I got Viatris stocks, the spin-off from Pfizer. That to me is simply just unprofessional behavior. At least you should receive some sort of notification. And thirdly, since Revolut is a foreign broker and I'm living in Denmark, that means that I have to do a lot of volunteer work and doing all the tax reporting myself. If you're curious to know more about how to actually report the tax to the Danish tax authorities, please see episode 65. I dedicated a whole episode to that just because it actually is quite cumbersome to do. So as promised, here are some numbers for why I have decided to leave Revolut. So first of all, there is a fee of 1,000 Danish kroner in Metal Plan yearly subscription. Then they have increased the custody fee from 0.01% to 0.12%. This is how much you pay for actually having an account there. And this custody fee is based on how much you have invested in your portfolio. Then of course I have the free exchange when I'm using the Metal Plan, meaning that you are exchanging your money to the interbank market offered rate, so there is no spread. And of course I have limitless amounts of trades, so I can trade as often as I will without having to pay anything on Revolut. If we then look at Nordnet, then there is a minimum of $13 per trade that I am doing, and here I will have an exchange fee of 0.15%. So in this calculation I have used the exchange rate, the most recent exchange rate of 6.57 from USD to DKK. I have used my portfolio value, and then as a proxy for how much I will invest on a yearly basis, I have inputted $18,000, or the equivalent of $1,500 every single month. So if we start with looking at the price on Revolut, well, the custody fee of having a portfolio of this size is actually a little more than $200 a year. Then the Metal Plan, when using the current exchange rate, is around $152. And on top of that, I have added an additional custody fee based on how much I would expect to invest on a yearly basis. So this gives a price total of $300 and almost $74. On Nordnet, for instance, if we assume that I will only do 12 trades a year, meaning 1 trade a month, that is the equivalent of $156. And of course I need to exchange my $18,000, and that will cost me $27. So now my price total becomes $183. Of course you can say there are some pros and cons with this. So let's look at some of the pros first. Well, obviously it goes without saying, if you can halve the price, then you are very tempted to go in this direction. What are the drawbacks? Well, the drawbacks is very naturally that I cannot trade as frequently as I previously did on Revolut, because the first year on Revolut I traded more than 110 times, since I was trading with much smaller numbers, since I find that highly incentivized a lot of people starting with smaller sums of money. So what I have done here is I have put in a number of 12 trades. This number would probably be even lower for me, since I want to trade with a minimum of $3,000 per trade. Otherwise, I will simply have to pay too much in fees. So perhaps this number would actually in reality be a little lower for me. This is just to illustrate the point more clearly and say perhaps some of my stocks is not performing the way I want to, and then you are selling something. But ideally, I don't want to sell anything, but just to leave room for potential mistakes. I have inputted number 12. You have to do some sort of approximation here when you want to compare your numbers. So I find it better to be a little more conservative and input a little higher than what I potentially expect. The next question I have received goes like this. Hello, I have one question. If you want to start with day trading in Denmark, is there any platform you would suggest that is connected to Skat and can save you all the trouble of inputting all the cells manually and simply doing it automatically by sending reports to your Skat? So first of all, thank you very much for the question. I'm actually quite surprised to see that I get a question like this, since I am as far away from day trading as you can possibly get. But nonetheless, let me see if I can answer your question. So, first of all, if you are tax liable in Denmark and you're using any Danish broker, then they will take care of the reporting to tax for you. So that means if you're using any regular bank or simply just a broker located in Denmark, then they will do the reporting for you. It doesn't matter if you're using Jyske Bank or you're using Nordea or Danske Bank or whatever bank in Denmark, or for instance the broker which I'm using, meaning Nordnet, then they actually take care of the reporting for you. The second part of your question, to find a platform that is particularly good for day trading, well, I mean, since I am as far away from day trading as you can possibly get, I'm probably one of the worst persons to answer this question. But if I have to put myself into your position, then what would I want as a day trader? I will of course want as low fees as I can possibly get. So if I just, for instance, compare Nordnet to Saxo Bank and then use US trades as an example, then I can see that the minimum fee on Saxo Bank is $3 compared to Nordnet's 13. So then it goes without saying that Saxo Bank would be my obvious choice there. But whether or not they are actually the cheapest in the market in Denmark, I simply do not know. And I also think it really depends on what market you specifically want to trade on. So I would highly suggest, if you want to find the best platform, that you ask somebody else than me, since I simply do not know that. If we then continue to the next question. Thank you, I am using your spreadsheet. When I received dividend funds, I have been keeping that as cash on the overview tab in the cost column, which for me is E29. I then thought that I should be keeping that in the value column, which for me is G29. I have been recording my dividend income, one-off funding, and broker fees in the cost column on the portfolio value tab. If I remove the dividend income from the cost column on the portfolio value tab, then the cost of the portfolio is very different from the cost of the portfolio on the overview tab. If I keep the dividend income as cash in the cost column on the overview tab, everything adds up correctly. So first of all, thank you very much for that excellent question. Let me try and explain what I'm doing in my portfolio, and then afterwards see if I can answer what I believe to be the correct in your situation. So first of all, in my cost cell here, you can see it is the sum of all my investments plus the cash which I hold. And this line I exclusively use for stocks which I have sold, but where I have not invested the cash which I have received back. It's just a more accurate way for me to depict what I'm actually doing in my portfolio, because otherwise, if I have just removed or sold out from an investment, if we use Wells Fargo for instance here, then I would have removed 5,500 as a cost if I didn't include it here, and then I would have the same value in my portfolio but with a lower cost. So that is why I have added this additional line. So this is actually just an interim line which I'm using, because if you then look to the bottom here, then you can see that I have including history. So that means when I have bought the stock and I have sold out of the stock, but when I have also then reinvested the money, then I will include it in the history tab here, just to give a more accurate picture down below. So what you see here is I'm not mentioning my dividends at all when it comes to the cost or to the value of the portfolio, because I simply view my dividends as money that I could use or I could choose to reinvest. So every time that I'm receiving dividends and are investing, then they will be automatically calculated into the cost. And also because I believe adding dividends into the cost function of the spreadsheet would actually be wrong, because I have no associated costs with dividends. Dividends is just something that I receive on the side. So you could, in theory, argue that I should have a third line here where I have included the dividends which I have received, so that my percentage gain would actually be better, since I would then have included all the gains which I have gotten. But since I have the view that dividends is money that you could use to whatever you would like to, then I find it more accurate to do it this way, which I'm currently doing. And just to clarify here, when I say that I have invested $4,751 into SGI, well, these are including my broker fees for the minimum of $13 which I have to pay on my broker. So that is why the majority of the stocks I have bought, just after I have bought them, they are down a little in value, since that is an additional cost, and that is why my purchase price is always a little higher than what the market actually is. One way to get around this discrepancy between the overview arc and the portfolio values arc could be to include an additional line here where you simply say fixed costs, and then you add that line where you, for instance, add your one-off custody fees, and in the value you then just put the value to 0. That would be a way to have the same. It will simply just be a different way of doing what I'm doing. There's nothing wrong about it. It's just a different assumption you are using by doing that. So hopefully this answered your questions, both with respect to why I have decided to leave Revolut, what platform to use if you don't want to do the reporting to the Danish tax authorities. Unfortunately, I cannot really advise about what platform is the best to use for day trading, since that is not what I'm doing and I simply do not have that knowledge. And you hopefully also got the question answered on how you can calculate your costs if you're using my spreadsheet, and seeing that there are some different options depending on what kind of assumptions that you want to use. So please let me know in the comments down below if you actually got the answer to your question, or if there's still something which is unclear, then please let me know so I can try and explain it in a different way, if you can clarify the question even more if there's still something which is unclear. If we then continue to a portfolio update, well, the first thing we immediately notice is that there's a red circle for this week's episode, meaning that the portfolio is down in value compared to last week. If we go to the portfolio values tab, we can see that the portfolio is down $3,000. At the same time, you can see that the cost has stayed unchanged, meaning that I have not done any new investments. If we then go back to the overview arc here and scroll to the top, just so you can see how each individual stock has been performing, well, it's not too surprising to see that my portfolio is down in value as well, since we, as of Friday, saw the biggest drop in the market within this year. So obviously I'm hit by that as well. And if you have been following any financial news within this week, then you will know that they have tried to explain it with this new variant called Omicron. Whether or not this is something that I should fear, well, your guess is as good as mine. You will simply never see a headline saying, well, all the stocks are down in value today since the market is simply just overvalued. That is not going to happen. They will always have to put up some sort of explanation for a new fear that you should be really scared about. So the good question is, of course, should I be scared? The simple answer is simply Nobody knows. So am I going to sell all my stocks because I have a potential fear that the market will drop 30% within a month if it's supposed to be like what we saw in March 2020? No, I will simply write off the storm and say the market does what the market does, but in the long run, it will pay off to be invested in the market. If we then continue to my favorites tab, namely the dividends tab, and let me just zoom out a bit here to give you the full overview, then you can see that this week has actually been quite an astonishing week, since I have received more than $175 in dividends from Unum Group. So now I have broken my previous record of $518 within a single month, since I have received a total of $537. But perhaps even more importantly is my year-to-date received dividends have now breached the $4,000 mark. So that means if we go to the goals sheet, I can actually update goal number 31, since I have now one step closer to becoming financially independent, since I can cross off goal number 31. So that actually sums it up for yet another exciting week of the Lazy Money Game. So now I have at least answered 3 questions, and I hope that you find the answer satisfactory. Otherwise, please let me know in the comments down below. And you have seen an update to my portfolio. So if you enjoy content like this and would like me to answer one of your questions in a future video, then please comment down below, or consider leaving a like, or consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out a lot. And until I see you next time, bye.